It's going to take 250 years at least to close the gender pay gap.
No.
I'm Ayesha Ofori. I'm the founder and CEO of Propel, which is the UK's first and currently only female-focused investment platform. I would wake up before school to study. I got, for some of my math modules, like 98%, 99%.
Wow.
I like to be at the top of my game.
Yeah.
And I've always been like that. It is very challenging and very difficult. On the fundraising side, in terms of women not being able to raise money, and it being even worse for Black women. But for me, I was just like, I will find a way. If you invest for a 10-year period, your probability of loss is around 2%. Mm-hmm. If you invest for 15 years, I think the probability of loss drops to something like 0.02. Mm-hmm. I mean, Einstein called compounding the eighth wonder of the world, and he's not wrong. For me, this is like the fundamental key thing about why investing works. Steady and often. It's not a flat line. It goes up almost exponentially.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of compound. I like to win, and I like to do things well. So I would do whatever it takes to make sure that happened. I don't think I've told people this before, but...
So Ayesha, welcome to the Money Games podcast. How are you?
I am very well. Thank you for having me.
I am so excited for today. I was just saying to you before I was watching your interview that you did, and there is just so much in that good stuff that I really want to unpack today. But for those that don't know you, would you mind giving us the 411? I'm
Ayesha Ofori. I'm the founder and CEO of Propel, which is the UK's first and currently only female-focused investment platform. Before that, I was a banker for a very long time. So for about 10 years. And then in the middle of that, I did an MBA. But I've been in finance pretty much all my sort of working career.
I heard something, you said you said like your mother was like super hot on education and that you did very well in school and pushed you to get good grades.
Yep.
But then you've had a really interesting money story. From that point on, like it wasn't always the like easy road that you might perhaps think that someone in banking and finance might have. What's that story there been like for you? Yeah,
so I've always been, I'm competitive.
Okay.
So I like to win and I like to do things well. So when it came to sort of studying, I wanted to get the best marks. So I would do whatever it takes to make sure that happened. I don't think I've told people this before, but so for example, with exams, GCSEs and things like this, I would wake up before school to study to make sure that I was covering everything. And then I go to school. And then when I had my GCSEs, I mean, my results were phenomenal. And then I was a bit like, I spent far too much time studying because actually the exams I found them so easy that I finished with time and sort of walked out. And then with A-levels, again, I got like for some of my math modules, like 98%, 99%.
Wow.
So, so I like to be at the top of my game.
Yeah.
And I've always been like that. And I think just my mother being really focused on education on top of that meant I did really well. And then even just sort of going through career and everything that I do, I always try to be at the top of my game. But when it came to sort of money, I think that was different because there's no sort of like blueprint. I wasn't taught how to manage money or anything like that. It wasn't really something that, was talked about in my household. And then when I got into banking, it was always looking at like other people's money, never sort of my own. And I think just coming from a background, where my family wasn't particularly wealthy, when I did start to get money, I was like, this is amazing. Oh my gosh, I'm going to like buy this for myself and buy that for myself. And also just being at Goldman and everyone looks phenomenal and everyone is dressed immaculately and you want to fit in. So I started buying the Louboutins and the other things just so that I also fit it in. But then it does mean that, yes, even though you're being paid very well, you're spending a lot of money. And it didn't really occur to me at that point that I needed to start, investing or thinking about the future. So money came in. I was pretty sure I was going to have my job next month. So it's like, I can spend it and next month I'll get more. And you kind of just get into that cycle.
Did you struggle with debt at all?
I did very early on. So when I was at university, again, did something very stupid. They give away, or they were giving away credit cards on campus.
Yeah.
I don't know if they still do that,
I had
but
the same.
it's like Freshers Fair, and there's massive stands, and they're literally giving away these credit cards. And so to me, it's like free money. And I'd never, up until that point, hadn't really worked. I'd done a stint in retail, didn't last very long. It wasn't for me. So I'd never really worked, hadn't really had any money. Like my mum, anything I needed, my mum would give me. So when I saw this credit card, I was like, amazing. And then I went out and I bought a necklace at once, all the money gone, ignored the bills that started to come. And then I think it was actually my dad that I got to bail me out. And even in the end, I don't think he knows this. If he listens to this, he's going to know now. I made up some excuse like, oh, I need money for something to pay for this. If I said to him, I took a credit card, bought a necklace, and now I need you to bail me out, he would have been like, on your own.
Yeah.
Understandably. So that was my first sort of experience with debt. And that kind of, it didn't scar me, but it was enough for me to be like, for now, I'm done with credit cards. So I guess a little bit of sort of trauma there. And otherwise, I would just work, get cash, spend most of it.
Yeah. You were young.
Yeah.
You didn't have that kind of grounding. So you just kind of, I literally, exactly the same thing happened to me. They turn up. There's a Barclays stand.
Yes, Barclays. That exactly. It's the Barclays credit card.
Yeah. Barclays stand, student overdraft, credit card, suddenly 3-4 grand down, and I'm 18 and I'm at university. Mum's not around, dad's not around. What are we going to do? Well, we're going to have fun. That's what we're going to do. And we're going to look great. And then suddenly you don't, because you're 18, you're like, oh, I'm 18. I've got years ahead of me. I've not even got a job yet to be able to pay this off.
It just didn't even occur to me. I didn't think about paying it back. Like that wasn't even sort of in my headspace. It's just like, well, they've obviously given it to me, so I'm eligible for it. Okay, great. I'm going to spend the money.
So what did you do at uni?
I studied physics.
Interesting. Yeah. It's completely different to finance, but the mathematics side of it, very much connected.
I mean, I knew nothing about finance when I went into finance. I studied physics. Maths is something that I've always loved. It was like my favorite topic at school. A-levels, I did double maths.
Did you?
Yeah. Double maths, physics, chemistry, and French.
Wow, and French. Oh, cool. Nice.
I was like, I've got to do something a little bit different.
Yeah.
I can't just do like all of the science and the numbers. But maths was just my thing. It makes sense. And I know this is going to sound really weird, but it's almost like I remember the feeling of like solving like algebraic equations or something like this. And, you have the sort of question at the top of the page and then you write the answer and it just all makes sense. And, like for other people, kind of when they look at it, I remember some of my friends would be like, what on earth have you written? To me, I'm like, but it's so clear. It's just, so it was just my thing. I was just very good at it. And so when I got to university, I was like, right, I want to do that. I want to do maths as well. But I was like, right, let me do physics because it's applied maths. So, or what I thought it was going to be useful maths rather than just doing maths, which is a bit abstract. But then I got into the program and then you're learning about the solar system and all these weird and wacky things. And I'm like, this is not practical at all.
Yeah.
But I'm here now. This is actually really interesting. I had so many questions about the universe, why we're here, how it all works. And I'm like, okay, this is amazing. I'm going to study physics. I'm going to learn all the answers to like human existence.
Yeah.
And then I think it was within my first term, I was like, they don't have the answers. And actually now I have more questions than I started with. But again, it worked for me. I like the fact that it was very analytical. I could sort of work my way through things and sort of problem solve. Whereas I never would have chosen something like English or history where there's just no right or wrong. You just have to explain things. Like for me, I'm a very black and white sort of person. And then when it came to banking, they came on campus and recruited us. And I remember thinking like, why have they come to us, like the physicists and the mathematicians? And they were like, you think analytically, everything you need to know about banking and finance, we can teach you, but it's the way your brains work. That's why we're here. I knew nothing about banking at that point. I thought the banks were like high street banks that, where you go and at that point, you deposit your money and you've got your little book and you go. So when I started, no clue, didn't know what a balance sheet was, didn't know what P&L was, but they taught us everything very quickly, very steep learning curve. And then you have exams that you have to pass pretty much at the beginning. If you don't pass them, you can't do the job.
Was this Morgan Stanley?
This was Morgan Stanley.
Yeah.
So you go through like a training program. It's the first thing you do. Very intensive, hours and hours of like accounting, financial spreadsheets. You get big binders of things you've got to learn. FCA rules, regulations.
Like a degree in itself.
It's pretty full on. But again, for me, like I like studying.
Yeah.
Had just come out of university. I was like, okay, I can do this. And then you're with a cohort of people who are very similar to you, a lot of Europeans actually. And it was just really fun. And we were having a good time, despite the fact that it was banking. You know, people always say, but you worked crazy hours. And we did. You know, we start at 9 and most nights you wouldn't finish till like 3, 4 a.m. And then the nights that we did finish a bit earlier, let's say we finished at midnight, we'd normally go to a club. And then clubs in London stay open till 3. So we go clubbing till 3. And then we
back in the desk
and
at
then
7.
then we go home, I don't know, get like 2 hours or something, and then grab clothes, change, and just do the whole thing over again. And every single night you're pretty much doing this.
There was that BBC program, I think it was like a BBC program of the young kids going through this.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what
I forget the name of what it's
It was
called.
really good though. And
Yeah.
it was like showing and how like some people just can't hack it and they drop out, but some people like they live for it and they become this.
It's full on, but you're in a bubble. And because you're working 7 days a week and you're not really seeing anyone else, you forget you're in a bubble.
Yeah.
And so people are like, how did you do it? We were all doing it. Like for us, it became normal. And even now I say I still have remnants of that. So I still do my best work between sort of 1 and 3 a.m. So even now my team...
Even now?
Yeah.
Are you a night owl?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Not a morning person at all.
Oh, I'm completely the opposite.
No, you will not get me up early in the morning. If I get up early, I am grumpy.
Yeah.
It's just not good for anyone.
I get it. My partner's exactly the same as you. She hates it. I'm literally like there, morning. And she's like, honestly, you need to like get the hell away from me now.
No, I'm exactly the same. But between like 1 and 3, my best hours. So what I've said to my team now is, I will be messaging you guys. I don't expect you to respond. Just make sure you've turned the notifications off so that when you wake up, you have them. But probably when you guys are up at like 6, 7, I'm not. But you can then start working on the things that I've kind of commented on through the night.
You're like totally flipping that founder status going. It's like 5 a.m.
You know, I have some friends like that who are founders as well. Oh, I get up at like 5 and then I go for a run, or oh my gosh, no, absolutely not. Just doesn't work for me.
Well, my hours are 5, about 6, I would say, because I do need a tea to kick in. 6 till 10, I'm on.
But you must go to bed really early.
Yeah, about 9:30, 10.
Oh my gosh. That's like, I'm having like dinner then.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm out like a light. That's when I fade off. So like computer goes off at 8 o'clock and, you know, hour and a half of like downtime.
Yeah.
And then, out like a light. But I'm every day, 5 o'clock, bing, morning, and like ready to go.
No.
Yeah.
And I've got 2 young kids as well. So I've got to fit their schedule in. So they go to bed at 8:30. So I usually work till around 6. Then I spend time with the kids, you know, dinner, get them ready for bed, homework, get them ready for bed, that kind of thing. Then it's probably about 9. So then I'll have some dinner, eat something. And then I start my second shift and I start working. And then I'll work, 1, 2. Then I'll have a shower and go to bed. Luckily, my husband's the same. So we're usually up pretty late working. The downside is that neither of us are morning people. So when the kids were younger and like they're waking up at like 4 or 5 a.m, I'm like, oh my God, this is painful, like actually painful.
Yeah, I know. I can imagine. Yeah, literally, like, especially as well when it's like they're super young. It's like every 2 hours, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know how I did that.
Well, did you? You just get through it.
I think you kind of get through it and you tell yourself that it's not going to last forever. So people are always asking me like, oh, will you sort of have another child? And whilst the theory is nice, the practicality of it, like doing those mornings, brutal.
Yeah.
And now that I'm running Propel and my days are full on, even with the 2 kids that I have, it's challenging. So yeah, I just don't see myself doing it again.
I get it. So you went from Morgan Stanley to Goldman.
Yep.
And
with an MBA in between. Yeah.
You're relentless.
Yeah, did an MBA in the middle. So I went to London Business School and did the 2-year MBA program. And I specialised in investment management.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And then you went from...
And then I went from there to Goldman.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, you're at Goldman now, you've essentially could stay there for the rest of your life. Why didn't you?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I thought I would. So pre-MBA, if someone had said to me like, what is like the pinnacle of success? I'd always had this thing like partner at Goldman Sachs, like, yeah, then you've made it. You're making money, like proper money. And you kind of have that, you know, that thing where, you know, people look up to it. It's like a status thing. So it's like, yes, that would mean I've made it. But it was actually business school that changed how I think about things and how I see the world. I went to business school. I was surrounded by people from all over the world who came from all different kinds of backgrounds. And just talking to them showed me that there were so many other things that you could do in the world. But because I'd only ever been exposed to banking, that was all that I knew. So then I started to speak to people who had come from consulting. I remember there was one girl in my class who was a chicken buyer for KFC. And I remember thinking, that's random. But it was just like, oh, that's a job.
Also pretty cool.
Yeah. And so it just really got me thinking that there's just so much that you can do. And so then I started to think, right, well, if I can do anything, what is it that I wanted to do? And business school really helped build my confidence in myself. And by the time I left, I genuinely felt like I can do anything. And I'd met MBAs before I did mine. And I was like, oh gosh, yeah, those arrogant American people who like so full of themselves. And I used to think, oh, so arrogant, so arrogant. And then when I did the MBA, I was like, it's not arrogance. Like
It's confidence.
It's confidence. Like you genuinely believe you can do this. And I'd say it's even more than believe, like you can do this. And that's what I developed. So I was like, right, I can pretty much do anything apart from become like president of the US. And that was back then. Like, given the way things are now, pretty much anyone can be president of America. So it's like, right, if I can do anything, what do I want to do? And I was like, I want to do something that has impact. It's always been important for me to leave a legacy. I always used to think about like why we're here as humans and what's the point of existing. And for me, it's leaving something positive behind.
It's that physics background.
I think so, because my husband says to me, it's like, you're so weird. Like most people are just happy to like be happy, have a family, have a nice job, have some money and just exist. What is your obsession with leaving something? It's just personal to me. I don't want to be here and then not be here and that's it.
Have you ever felt like investing is only for the experts? Well, with Trading 212, that couldn't be further from the truth. They've made it their mission to democratize investing. So now anyone can start building their financial future, regardless of experience or their budget. Their Stocks and Shares ISA is packed with benefits, no platform fees, industry low FX fees, and access to thousands of investment options from ETFs and funds to individual stocks. Plus, the app is so user-friendly, you can start investing with just a few taps. But what really sets Trading 212 apart is how they're FCA regulated and offer clients' funds FSCS protection. So while your investments can go up or down, you know that they're held in a safe, secure environment. And right now, there's never been a better time to join. Trading 212 is giving you a free fractional share worth up to £100 when you open an account and deposit just £1. To claim your free share, click the link in the show notes below or enter the promo code MGP when you sign up. That's MGP when you sign up. As always, remember your capital is at risk when investing. ISA rules, T's and C's and other fees may apply. If you've ever wanted to start investing but didn't know where to begin, Trading 212 is here to make it super simple. Start your investing journey today and see where it can take you. And now back to the episode. Do you have someone in your family that perhaps you really look up to that's left a legacy that's instilled into you?
No, not at all. And I think it's probably the opposite. Like, beyond my grandmother, I don't know anything about any of my sort of family before that. I was like, well, that's pretty sad. That's just 2 generations and then you're forgotten. I'm like, I don't want that to be me. I want my life to mean something. I want to, as I said, leave something behind in a positive way. And so I started to think about, okay, how best can I do that? What aligns with my skill set? What does the world need? And at that time, I couldn't come up with anything. I was still at business school. And they were sort of pressuring me to submit my CV for things. And I sort of said to them, look, part of the reason of taking this MBA was because I wanted 2 years to like figure things out and sort of find myself. I think we started in July, and by the October, they're like, where's your CV? And I was like, CV for what? I don't know what I want to do. And they're like, no, you have to submit a CV now because you've got to apply for an internship that you've got to do next summer. And then that will get you a job the year after. And I was just like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I thought I had time and I had to go along with everybody else. So I submitted my CV. The only thing I knew was banking. So ended up applying for banking. But I did know at that point more about myself. So I knew that I didn't like mornings, so I wasn't going to be a trader. I knew that as much as I love numbers, I also like talking and people. So I wanted a role that was more personable. I wanted more leadership responsibilities. So that helped when I started to think about what roles post MBA I wanted to do. And someone suggested wealth management to me. And initially I was like, you mean hanging out with a bunch of old dudes that play golf and smoke cigars? And I was like, no, thanks. And then someone said, no, at Goldman, it's different. You know, you can be the person that manages the money, but you're also the person responsible for bringing the clients in. They're very sort of modern, forward thinking. They're like, they actually said, oh, I think you'd fit well in Goldman. I don't know whether that was
the pitch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or not. But I was like, okay, let me have a look. Yeah. And then I looked at it and I was like, yeah, I think I could do this.
Yeah. And that's like, you know that about yourself now. So you got that into that position and you're like, okay, I'm going to go and do this. When did it hit you like a ton of bricks? Because it always happens to founders. There's like, okay, I just had the idea and maybe it festered for a little while, but it hit me. And I'm like, now the cogs are in motion.
Yep. I remember that point so clearly. So when I'd finally decided to leave Goldman, because I knew that I wanted to do something else, we were only helping incredibly wealthy people. And I was like, no, there are people out there who need help. I want to help them. We had like lots of male clients. I was like, where are the women? So I left Goldman, but I didn't have a clear vision of what I was going to do next. And that's incredibly scary because I essentially left into the abyss. Like, what am I going to do? Oh my gosh, I have no idea. But then I started to just run events and I said, look, I'm going to take some time out. I've had a baby. I'm going to take a bit of time. I'm not a stay-at-home mum, and I will say that openly. That is just not me. So I was like, right, I need to do something or I'm going to go a bit crazy here. So I said, right, why don't I just start running events and sharing with women what I know about building wealth, from building my own wealth through property investing and also what I learned at Goldman. And I was like, do you know what? If 50 women turn up, absolutely fine. You know what? I'm still figuring out what I want to do. So I hired a hotel room. It was a hotel near Euston Square. I sometimes I drive past it. I'm like, that's where it started. And had an event, first event, 100 people. I was like, oh, amazing.
I'm on something here. Yeah.
Even at that point, it didn't click.
Oh, really?
It was when I kept doing it, I was probably like 4 in, and then the wait list was like 1,000. And I was like, something has happened.
Yeah.
I hadn't spent a penny on marketing. Yeah. I'm actually pretty rubbish with social media. So I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And then it was during some of those sessions, women then started to say, okay, I've been coming to your events for a while. I'm ready to invest. You know, how do I send you my money? And I was like, oh, you don't send the money to me. And I was like, oh God, like, I hope you're not sending your money to anyone that you just meet. Like, no, don't send the money to me. I don't work for Goldman. I'm not regulated. I'm like, go use an investment platform. There are so many. And then they come back and say, oh no, but I tried that one and that one just doesn't make any sense, or various different reasons or things came up. And that was the moment. I was like, hold on a second. They want to invest. They're ready to invest. They have the money, but they don't want to use any of the existing platforms out there. I was like, then I should build one. And I actually didn't want to, because working in a regulated environment is incredibly challenging.
Yeah.
And even from my time at Goldman and compliance and all the things that happened, there were some regulatory changes that happened when I was there, and it was just painful.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, do I really want to go down that route? And I remember speaking to my husband about it. He was a banker too. He's like, no, don't do it. He's like, oh, it's just going to be a headache. But I'm like,
compliance.
Yeah, compliance. Just, oh my gosh. But he's like, I sort of said to myself, but they're asking for it.
The mission's bigger.
Yeah, they're asking for it. I can help these women. And they're asking me to do something I know how to do. And it was like, that was the light bulb moment. I'm like, I need to build an investment platform. I need to build an investment platform that's for women, that helps them to overcome, whatever hurdles they have, that helps them to invest. So whatever it is about those existing platforms that they don't like, we need to do something different because women out here, they want to invest. So we need to help them to do that. And that was the light bulb moment.
Wow. So it did take a little bit of a jab from these events for it to go off.
Yeah.
But you had that, it's a big part of starting a business because you've tested the water early. Yep. That's why people say, get a wait list together. If you don't get anyone on the wait list, it's probably not a good idea. And but you've done the events, you've seen that, you've got feedback one-on-one with these people.
And I did that without even really thinking about it, right? Because I'd never been an entrepreneur. So I didn't know at the time that there were certain things that you had to do before you sort of start running with an idea.
Yeah.
For me, it's just, they just happened. I started running the
they're the best
ones
events because it's fell into your lap.
Exactly. Yeah. And then, so looking back with hindsight, I'm like, oh yeah, I did actually test those things and do all of that. It wasn't intentional, but, but it happened. Exactly.
This is if I was starting a brand new business, I'm testing the water, left, right and center to see what's going on. Or when we launch a program, it's exactly the same.
So now I know how to do it. Yeah. And they always say second time founders are great because you've kind of done it. You've made mistakes and then you do it better next time.
Yeah. Or hopefully your first one's just sure shot, which it sounds like it is. And we know it is. And
that's where I am with Propel.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you've done the groundwork to get yourself to that point. Yep. What's it like building an investment app and raising money to do that? It's a lot, right?
Yes, it is a lot. I think some days I don't even appreciate just how much work it is and what it takes from you. I'm a go person all the time. There's always something to do, always something to be done. You get up tomorrow, you just keep going. So sometimes I don't even have time to kind of reflect. It's something that I'm trying to do now because people are telling me to do it. They're like, if you don't stop, you're going to burn out. And even with my sort of IBD background, I'm like, yeah, but I know where my limits are. For example, I know how long I can stay awake without sleeping before I start to go a bit too lally. It's just over 2 days. A lot of people don't even know that. They haven't tested themselves to those limits, whereas banking tested me. So I know where my limits are. So it's almost like, yeah, I know I can do more because I'm nowhere near my limit. That said, it is very challenging and very difficult. On the fundraising side, it's something that's talked about a lot in terms of women not being able to raise money, and it being even worse for Black women. It is a real thing. I didn't think it would apply to me. I was a bit, naive. I was sort of saying, okay, but I have a physics degree. I worked at Morgan Stanley. I've got an MBA. I worked at Goldman Sachs. I know women don't raise, but I didn't think it's not me. I fit in a different box. But even for me, it was really, really hard. Also the fact that I'm a solo founder, and investors tend to like when there's multiple founders. I have 2 young children, so they'd be like, well, how the hell are you going to run a company and deal with all the stuff that comes with, being a mum? So many things. But for me, I was just like, I will find a way. I will find a way. I will keep going.
But then they meet you, just sitting here in this 30 minutes that we've been going so far, it's very apparent, your drive.
You say that, but I went to countless investor pitches.
Really?
And what they would say to me is, yeah, we like it, but not sure if the market is big enough. Do women really want this? Whatever I call them excuses were. Wow. And they'd sort of say, it's not a no. You just need to get a bit more traction. Come back to me, come back to me, come back to me. And after a certain point, I was like, I'm done with them. Yeah. And the turning point for us was getting into the Google for Startups program.
Okay.
So Google had a fund for Black founders. It's called the Google Black Founders Fund. I applied for that. We got in. Within 2 weeks of that PR going out, the same people that I had been speaking to before came back and was like, is it still open? Is it still open?
Yeah.
And part of me wanted to be like, I'm not taking your money. Like, you get lost after what you put me through. But I was like, no, actually, I need the money. So I will eat some humble pie. I will take the money.
Swallow your pride.
Exactly. Swallow my pride. Yeah. And at that time, I didn't even take in as much money as I knew I needed. To get to the point that I needed to, I probably needed to raise about $1.5 million. But at that point, I just took in $500,000 because I was like, do you know what? This has been so traumatic. I don't want to fundraise for a bit. So let me just take in this $500,000, hire some people, start proving out the traction, getting those proof points, and then I can raise the rest of the money. And then it's no longer me trying to convince them or them just believing in an idea. Then I'll have some sort of data points and actually something concrete to go back to them with. And that's essentially what I did. Hired engineers. That in itself is a whole thing.
Yeah.
I'm not a tech person.
Yeah. You know how it wants the look and feel.
Just,
but yeah,
exactly. I mean, I did a bit of coding in my physics degree. I learned C++, not by choice.
Yeah, no.
It was sort of forced on me, but learn a bit of coding. But I didn't know anything about...
It's a different ball game, especially in the app world as well. It's like...
But then how do you interview someone when you don't know like the details of what they do? It was actually... that literally happened to me. It's like, right, I need to hire engineers. Okay, let's interview them. How can I interview them? Like, I can't possibly do that. So luckily, one of our investors, who's an absolute superstar in the tech field and, you know, was multiple CTO himself, I sort of said to him, look, if I interview them for fit and personality and culture, can you do the technical interview? Because I can't. And so that's what I did. So then I found some, and this is why your network's important. So then I hired some engineers, we started building, we got the proof points, and then later I went out and raised the rest of the money. But at that point, I sort of said to myself, I just want to raise from individuals. Heard horror stories about VCs, had a couple of unpleasant experiences with some VCs myself. And I said, yeah, I'm just not doing that right now.
It's so inspiring, though. It's an idea to like, yeah, let's go make this happen. And also banged on loads of doors, didn't happen, got the opportunity, those doors reopened down the line. It just goes to show, like, if you don't quit.
Yep, 100%, because there was somebody else who had a very similar idea. She started a bit after me, but very similar idea, to the point where somebody we both knew said, why don't you guys just work together, because you're basically doing the same thing. And I was actually open to working with her because I was much further ahead in my journey. So I had been through certain pitfalls and things and hurdles, and she sort of said, oh no, but I don't need to work with you because I'm going to go out and do this and find this. And I'm like, I've already tried to do that. It's actually really difficult. Like, just trust me with what you've got and I've got. If we just pull it together, it'll actually make things easier. But she was like, no, I'm going to go do it myself. So I was like, oh, fine. She'll go and do it. I'll do what I'm doing. Stay true to my course. And she couldn't raise. She didn't raise the money. She didn't raise as much as she needed to get it off the ground. And it all fell out of bed and she went off to do something else. So I think in her case, I think I still wouldn't have given up. Like, even for me, when I started to fundraise and I couldn't raise all the money I was needed, I took $500,000 and I said, I'm just going to roll with that and I will find the rest later. Whereas I think other people are sometimes like, I need it all right now, otherwise they give up. And that's just sort of not who I am.
Prototype, let's build that, and then we can really come back to the market and say, look, this is what we've got.
And I'm not going to give up. Like, I know that there is something great to be built here. I know it. I feel it.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to stop.
Yeah. Let's jump into some of the reasons why, because it's quite incredible. Research from Fidelity found that women outperform men by approximately 0.4% every year. And then the Warwick Business School did a study and found it was actually 1.8%. Which is actually quite incredible. But then we have the problem of actually getting women investing in the first place. And there was a study done by Fidelity again that 67% of women are now investing outside of the retirement accounts compared to 44% in 2018. So that's growing, but it's not enough, right?
Not by any means, not at the moment. So that's the irony, right? When it comes to investing, women are actually great investors. And I think it's because they tend to be more prudent. So a lot of people say that women are really like risk averse. like, oh gosh, investing is risky, so women don't want to go anywhere near it. I don't see that. I say women are risk aware. They have more questions. There are more things that they want to know before they move forward. But if you give them that information and they're able to like assess the investment and the opportunity, just because it has a certain level of risk, they're still potentially willing to move forward once you give them the information. And I think it's that prudence and that extra due diligence that makes them better investors potentially. But as you said, women just aren't investing anywhere near enough. We're great at saving, but savings don't move the needle as much as investing does. And sometimes people even use the word interchangeably, and it's so frustrating. If you're saving, you are not investing. It takes a whole different sort of mindset. Like, savings are things you do for short-term goals, like your emergency fund or something very short-term. I typically say anything sort of less than 3 years, you should probably save for.
Yeah.
Then anything longer than 3 years, you should start to think about putting that money to work in investing, you know. And then I have another bracket, sort of 3 to 5 years, sort of shorter-term investments. And then anything sort of 5 years plus is sort of longer-term, and then your pension. And how you put your money to work will vary depending on where on that line it is. But the investing part is very, very different to the savings part. And this is what we're really trying to get across to women. And then when it comes back to the sort of risk thing, like investing in what I call sort of core, very vanilla, sort of generalized funds or ETFs, like we work, for example, with Vanguard and BlackRock and some of their funds. Slow and steady over time, that's really all you need. And actually, the data shows, I think it's with the S&P 500, if you invest for a 10-year period, your probability of loss is around 2%. If you invest for 15 years, I think the probability of loss drops to something like 0.02. I mean, that's not risky. So it's actually about the time that you invest for. So if you're investing for the long term, you can significantly reduce the risk. But yes, I get it. If you're investing, and I wouldn't even call it investing, but if you say, for example, bought some shares or something for like a few months or a year, yes, probably a lot of volatility, a lot of risk, but that's not investing. I'd say that's probably gambling. So if you're actually investing in line with a true investment philosophy for the long term, by nature of the fact that it's so long term, you significantly reduce the risk. So when people say to me, like, investing in those types of assets is risky, I'm like, where? Show me the risk. You know?
Yeah. And like the comparison to gambling is that you're playing with pure chance, whereas these are real businesses.
Yep.
Some of the best businesses in the world, real people making real profits every single day.
Yep.
And you are essentially tapping into a little piece of that when you do invest into these companies.
Absolutely. And if you invest through a fund, there's likely a fund manager somewhere or a whole team of managers, and it's their job day in, day out to be looking at the underlying investments in this fund. And, you know, those people probably have various different qualifications, like what I went through when I was in banking. So there's a lot of smart people looking at this on a regular basis.
Yeah, with an enormous amount of data.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when you think about all of these things, I think the risk is more sort of in your mind. It's not actually...
The risk is not doing it.
Exactly.
In my opinion.
And also there's always an element of risk in something, right?
Of course.
You know, nothing is completely risk-free. What people have to think about is the probability of that risk occurring. If the chances of it happening are so small, then it's overall, I say it's not that risky.
Yeah, absolutely. So like, it's quite stark when you come to look at the figures between men and women when they come to retire. I think the average retirement pot is just under £40,000 for women, and the average retirement pot for men just above £84,000. So that's, you know, less, that's double.
Yep.
Which is pretty crazy. Obviously, there are some factors at play, you know, simply because of the makeup of, you know, men and women. Women usually birth the children and will raise them very much in the first couple of years at least, which obviously then has an effect on how much they can bring in and their careers, etc. So there's that involved, which we do need to take into consideration. However, there are some other big factors at play. What's some of the big ones that you see?
Yeah, so it's a couple of things. So there's obviously the gender pay gap. So the fact that men get paid more than women, that is closing. And so I'd say it was more of an issue in the past. It is still an issue because we're not at parity yet, but it's getting better. So there's a pay gap. As you mentioned, women tend to be the ones who, well, first of all, they have the children, but then they become carers predominantly for the children, and also tend to be the ones who become carers for sort of elderly relatives and things like this. So will take time out if that happens. Then also during menopause, a lot of women also take time out because of the various different effects that they're feeling. And when you add all of this stuff in, it's essentially the time out of work that has the biggest impact on earning potential, but also how much they can accumulate.
Yes.
And then also you've got
compounding years, essentially.
Exactly. And you've got to think about, time out and what happens to their pensions and things like this. But then it's compounded by the fact that women then don't tend to invest the money they do have. It goes to saving. So some of those factors that I've mentioned, we can't solve for. Or, women are the ones who have the children. Yes, there could be more done in terms of like paternity leave and things like that. And I think we are making progress in some of those areas, but we're not going to be able to eliminate them all completely. So the way that I look at it is, okay, what are the things that women can absolutely change and have a direct positive, impact? Well, put your money to work and put it to work as hard as you possibly can for as long as you possibly can. And I don't know, sometimes for me, it's like so simple. Just, you don't even have to invest a lot or have a lot of money. You can open an ISA with £1. It's steady, often consistent, even if it's a small amount of money. So that's the message that I'm going to keep drumming into people and just keep going over and over and over. It's, investing isn't just for the rich. You can invest with a small amount of money. What matters is when you start as soon as possible, being consistent and investing for the long term.
Yeah, we did a study the other day into like even waiting 3 years versus somebody else that doesn't and does that whole like
huge
35
impact.
years, and someone does 32 years.
Yeah.
The difference is hundreds of thousands.
Yep.
So those small contributions earlier make an enormous difference. The time is the key factor with this.
But I think a lot of people don't realize that. So I've actually put together an Excel model where I can show people this. And
that doesn't surprise me in any way, shape, or form.
What can I say? Excel is like my best friend. Excel is, I love it. Just so logical. And it's so easy to show things.
I can't. I'm very much like, have to write things out and see it in front of me. Excel, I'm just like, oh.
But for me, it works. And so what I've done is I've shown people, like, if you increase your investments, say you're making monthly contributions, if you increase it just by a little bit, an extra £10 or an extra £50, over 10, 20, 30, 40 years, look at this huge impact. As you said, if you started investing now versus in 3 years' time, over 10, 20, 30, 40 years, look at the difference. And it is meaningful. But people just assume, oh, it's only 3 years, it doesn't matter. Oh, it's only an extra 10 quid, that's nothing. Compounding. Einstein called it the eighth wonder of the world. Like, it really is. And it's like, it's not a flat line. It's linear. It's not even linear. It goes up like this. It's almost exponential.
Yeah.
And that is the beauty of investing. It's all in the compounding. And in order to benefit from that, you've got to stick at it.
Yeah.
Start early, invest often, and keep going.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Now, like the gender pay gap is something which is interesting because it is closing, but it's still standing at the moment at 13.1%.
Yep.
That's quite a stark difference over an earning lifetime.
Yes.
Hopefully there's more parity within that as we move in, and this becomes a little bit more of a topic.
Yep.
As it should. What are some of the things that you want to see in that space being done at the moment, which can try and close that gap?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I think it is definitely changing. We're getting more women sort of going through university and coming out with degrees and therefore getting better jobs. But I think then ultimately it comes down to the companies. And it's going to have to be on them to make sure that they are paying women appropriately. Like, why do you have to wait until the government forces you to publish your numbers? Like, why? Why do you have to be forced to do it? And I guess the argument, if I thought about the flip side, is, well, We're companies, we're trying to make as much money as possible. If we don't have to give it to people, then we won't. But I think there should be sort of a base level of what is acceptable.
I'm on track to have over £5.5 million in retirement. And I'm not saying this to brag, guys. I'm saying this because I am an everyday person just like you. So what does that actually mean? Well, it means that it's actually possible for you to build life-changing wealth too, no matter where you're at on your journey, your age, your knowledge, or even your current financial situation. So Sammy, how do I sort that out? Well, I've created something super cool, which literally takes 1 minute of your time. I've left a link in the show notes to a free money personality quiz, which will provide you guys with a free tailored content plan based exactly where you're at on your financial journey. Once you filled it out, you're sent the steps to start getting you results from day one. And then once you're ready, you can then move up to the next step very easily too. It's not judgy in any way. It's totally free to do, and it's actually really good fun too. Simply head down to the show notes and click the link there where it says to do the quiz and get your free money action plan right now. Now back to the show. No, I completely agree. And one of the things that I would say as well as I'd add to that is like, I think that the older companies are still sort of stuck in their ways as such. Yep. And it kind of leads me on to my next point as well, actually, which is that the newer companies are much more open to the open work policies, you know, I need to go pick up the kids. Cool. Go pick up the kids and work in the evening, because we're all doing that too, you know, and it's like they're being way more accepting about what has become modern life, basically amplified since COVID, and everyone realized that they could all be at home and still create $1 million company or £1 million company or whatever that might well be, right? So I think we've become more awoken to that, but the older institutional FTSE companies perhaps haven't.
And it's hard to get dinosaurs to change.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the problems. You know, they've been so used to the system being a certain way that
you're here at 9, you leave at 6.
That they're almost reluctant to change. But I think they're going to have to change, because what I see with younger generations is that they're not prepared to accept the status quo.
Oh no.
And they won't buy your products and they won't interact with your company. So I think a lot of these big corporates are going to get dragged into the modern ages, if you like.
Yes.
And they won't have a choice to some extent, because I also think younger people are just sort of like, we're just not prepared to put up with that. And that's just not the life that we want. And eventually those older people are going to move on and newer people are going to come in, and they're going to have different mindsets. So I think over time we are going to get more change. And I think the pay gap will decrease further. I think it's going to take quite a long time still. I can't remember if it's like 250 years or whatever it is till we get to parity. So still a lot of work to be done. Yeah. But we are moving in the right direction. Yeah,
no, I agree. And there are some industries where it closed almost to parity. Yeah. And there's others which are still extremely far apart, which is sort of giving that figure as an average, by the way. So, you know, we get it a lot. When we do posts on this, people go nuts. They're literally like, no, that's not true. Like, Sandra, my team's paying exactly the same as me. And I'm like, in your company.
Yeah, but not in others. Like, even in banking, it's when I was there, I definitely initially was paid less than some of my male counterparts. And I only realized when I had a conversation with somebody and he let it slip how much he earned. He let it slip how much he earned. And I was like, hold on a second. We're the same level. I'm doing just as well as you are in terms of assets and what you're doing. Why are you being paid more than me? The problem is there's actually, and I know this exists in other firms as well, some firms have policies where you're not allowed to talk about your pay. So then how do you say, well, he or she is being paid more than me if you're not supposed to talk about it, because you're not supposed to know?
It's called 3 pints in the pub. Shall we go for a drink? Let me plow you with cheap tequila and let me see if I can get this out of
get all the information. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I didn't even have to do that with him. I think also once he saw the shock in my face and then he realized he was making more than me, he was like, ha, 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 like, I'm better. No, you're not. No, you're not. I was like, no, you're not. No. But I can't handle injustice.
Yeah, I agree.
For me, things have to be fair. So I marched myself into my boss's office and I was like, what the hell? This is not acceptable. And then I'm like, I don't care that I know or that, you know, I'm not supposed to know. I now know. And
what are you going to do about it?
Yeah. What are you going to do to make sure that I'm paid fairly? And then I remember when I was in there, I was like, I might as well just go for everything. And I was like, and I want a promotion.
And I want I want a pension increase. I want an extra holiday.
No, I just went for it. And then I said to
good.
myself, right, how can I make sure this happens? So I said to him, okay, what do you need to see from me to make sure I get my pay rise and I get my promotion? And he said, well, in order to get this, you need to have this. And then in order to get this, you need to have this. So I went back to my desk, I emailed him and I said, hey, thanks for your time. Great conversation. It's nice to know that when I hit this, I'm going to get this. And when I hit this, I'm going to get this. Then I had my targets. And so I said to myself, okay, I'm going to smash those targets. I now have something very clear to work towards. I'm going to smash those targets. And then I'm going to march back into his office and I'm going to like, give me my pay rise and give me my promotion. And that's exactly what I did.
Yes.
And I got them.
I love that. Now, I think that's, you've got that in you.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of women, simply because, like, if we look at the way society has gone, like, it's like 1970 first bank account, 1990s credit cards.
Yeah.
Like, our mums who have been who have experienced that are still alive.
Yep.
So that's very much been handed down to us.
Yep.
And so, like, it's only really like the last 20, 30 years.
And it's shocking.
Things have been like a little bit more in line. And then obviously we're coming out of that, and a lot of that's still ingrained into society. So like, women don't feel like they can march into the offices and try to demand things because they're still sort of learning about like what's possible for them at the moment. Do you see that?
No, absolutely. And I totally appreciate that I have a certain type of personality. I always say that if I had been born like centuries before things, like I probably would have got into a lot of trouble because I say what I think. I don't tolerate nonsense. And I totally appreciate that, you know, way back when it wouldn't have been accepted, and some women just don't have that in them. But it's really important, I think. I think it's up to each of us to try and find that thing within us to make sure that we fight for what is right. And you don't have to do it in the way that I did it. You don't have to kind of like storm in there and be like, you know, what the hell's going on? There are other ways to do it. My husband always says to me, he's like, Ayesha, you're a sledgehammer. He's like, sometimes it doesn't take a sledgehammer.
No.
And he's right. And there are other ways to do things.
Totally.
But it's important to know your worth. You have to know your worth.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
It's the worth, right? Yeah. You've got to get there. Somehow, no matter how. If you've got to play a bit of a game, get people to like you or do what you need to do, you know,
100%.
And us men, we can be played. I get played every day in my own house for whatever that might well be. Even if it's just to make her a cup of tea when she can't get up, be asked to get up. But like, it, you know, it has to be done. And sometimes, and that's how you get ahead. But equally, men doing the same as well. You've got to play the game against your boss to get him to like you, to do the thing, to get the more money out of it. So be it. Like, you've got to do that to get ahead.
No, 100%. Right? And I think with women, I think there's an element that comes from your upbringing and how you're raised. I see it in my daughters. I've got a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old. The 3-year-old, oh my God, she's going to be a force. I don't know how I'm going to get through the teenage years. I'm like, pray for me. But after that, I can see it already. She is going to be an absolute force. And even my 7-year-old, very confident, you know, says what she thinks. She'll be like, excuse me, that's not correct. And I'm just like, I love this. So I am raising them to say when they think something isn't right, to have the confidence to speak up about it. And I think for a lot of women, again, we just weren't given that opportunity. We was, you know, way back when it's like we're around, but we're not really supposed to speak or be heard from.
Yeah. So it's still like ingrained in you. It's very much as well how your mother probably raised you as well and gave you those opportunities. Like my sister.
Well, my mum is a force as well. So
exactly. Like my sister, like scares the absolute crap out of me. Scares the absolute crap out of everyone. But then also is just like, only because she's just so headstrong about what she wants. And like, you just wouldn't mess with her. But also on the other side of it is probably the loveliest person I've ever met. And so like, she has got that and has definitely come from my dad and her mum as well. We have different mums. So like it, you know, she's found out about that about herself, and now guess what? She's doing great in her career.
Yep.
Because she just doesn't let anything slide.
But I think what you said there about her also being a nice person is really important, because people assume that if you're a woman and you're really strong and you don't take any, I don't want to swear, you don't take
Please
any,
do.
you don't take any shit from anyone, that, you know, you start to get labeled and you're a certain type of woman. I think we need to step away from that. You know, we need to allow women to stand up for themselves, to be strong without there being labels or people trying to tear women down. And I think that, as I said, with my own girls, I can see that. And I want them to feel that they can be that. Like, even now with my younger daughter, you know, she says to me, she's like, I want to be a fireman. I was like, okay, well, it's a firefighter, but I get what you're trying to say. But yeah, if you want to do that, you can absolutely do that.
Yeah.
You know, you can do whatever you want to do.
Absolutely. And that should be instilled into everyone. I think when it comes to investing, then let's like touch on this, because Propel have really made it so simple. It's very hard not to understand.
Yep.
What has been the biggest barrier, do you feel like? You've got the lady there wanting to put some money in, but the stumbling block is understanding the actual concept of investing. What work have you been doing around sort of bridging that gap?
So we have been, first of all, trying to understand what were the barriers. Why weren't women, or why aren't women using those existing platforms? And then trying to design Propel in a way that they don't face those same obstacles. So women have told us it's been things like they lack confidence. So they second guess themselves. So it's sort of like, even if they know what they should do, they're sort of like, oh, but I'm really not sure. I need like a financial advisor or someone to tell me. And then in some cases they said, yeah, the financial advisor just told me what I knew anyway. So I'm like, right, how do we help them to have that confidence that they don't need to have that additional check? There were certain things that they would sort of face barriers with when it came to sort of terminology and jargon and things like that. So in our platform, any jargon should be explained. And we always say to our users, if you come across something that's not, then we need to fix that. Then we haven't done it right. You should be able to go the entire way through our platform and understand everything. If you don't, let us know and we will fix it. And also things around just like when you actually get to the point where you want to make an investment, you know, you're given this investment memo that you have to agree to. There's like a 30-page document of, I mean, it's legalese, it's financial jargon. I don't know if anyone actually reads them, but you're supposed to read them and tick. Most people just scroll to the bottom. But I sort of said to my team, okay, yes, they've got to fill this in, but how can we actually help them to understand what's in there before they just scroll to the bottom and press tick? Like, can we make a video? Can we simplify some of the concepts? So this is what we've tried to do. And the whole point of our platform is that we want women to be able to come to the platform, be able to build their investment strategy, and then go on and invest according to that strategy by themselves. And there are various tools and things that we've built to help them do that. The first set of tools are being released this week, which I'm really excited about. And that's the idea. So we say to women, right, at any point you're not sure what to do or you get stuck, let us know. Like, we're building this platform for you, so we need your input. So we have testers, but we even say to our wider, community and users, like, anything you don't understand or you find challenging, let us know. Because if you've hit a roadblock, we have to fix it.
Yeah, you're building a real community there.
Yeah,
where they want to see you build these things, so it gets better for everyone else just like them, and it's like everyone's connected.
Exactly. And they really get involved.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, I'm happy to test. I'm happy to do this. And then even in some of the interviews, she's like, oh, I'm not sure if I should say. No, please say. Like, you're not going to hurt my feelings. I'm like, if you think that shit, you don't like that, tell me.
Yeah.
Because we will make the changes and we will fix this. We are building this for you. We want to help fix your problems. If you don't tell us what they are, then we can't change the platform. Yeah. And I think that's the key thing. Like, a lot of the other platforms out there were built by men. I don't think they intentionally tried to exclude women. It's just, if you're not thinking about women and that they might have different needs or different uses, etc., then, I mean, it's not surprising that it's not really aligned to them. Whereas women are at the forefront of what we do. Every single thing, it's like, right, how will this work for women? What are they likely to do? And even sometimes we get it wrong. I mean, we build things and it's like, okay, yeah, this is really straightforward. They're going to go through, click here, do this. And then we let some people in and then they do completely opposite. Yeah. And we're like, what?
Why? Yeah.
I'm like, that's not logical.
Yeah, but it's
really interesting.
It's user engagement, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, we see it on the our websites and sales pages because you can use Microsoft Clarity. And you can see exactly where they've gone.
Yep.
And there's like heat maps for where people go to.
Yeah.
And you're like, what are you doing? All the information is at the top, and you've just gone right to the bottom. And and like the data that like people doing that, it's just wild. And you're like, I've set this page up all beautifully for you. It's taken me hours, and you've just skipped to the bit. But you have to know that, right? And I think that informs you and helps make the experiences better for everyone that uses your product. So talk to me about the actual investing options on the platform. You mentioned the Vanguard and BlackRock funds.
Yeah.
But you also have some interesting other ones as well, right?
Well, so when we had our beta, we actually tested property investing first.
Right.
So we actually had
REITs.
No, we partnered with a property crowdfunding platform.
Oh, interesting.
And we wanted to help women invest in direct property, because one of the things that I noticed was, aside from the fact that that's how I built my own wealth, when I think back to like our clients at Goldman, everyone had real estate, and quite a lot of it. It was like a staple. And so I was like, this is a tool that the wealthy use to build wealth. How do we give this to people who can't afford deposits to go and buy whole houses?
Yeah, you club everyone together. Yeah.
So we partnered with a crowdfunding platform, and then we started to give women, we were testing it. So it wasn't open to the wider audience. We had a testing group. They absolutely loved it. They invested in, I think it was across 5 deals. And when they started to pay back, they got really excited. They were getting great returns. Like some of the deals were giving 20% per annum. But
20%?
Yeah. But what happened is all of those projects went well. And then some of the women were like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I've got to put all my money in. And I was like, oh my gosh, no. Like, that's not how you should be thinking about this. But because we don't give financial advice, people have to make the decisions themselves. I actually said, guys, I think we've jumped too far ahead here. We need to go back to basics. We need to help women understand the fundamentals and the principles, and that actually majority of your portfolio should be in these boring, I shouldn't call them boring funds, but these vanilla funds, these staples. At Goldman, there was a strategy that we used a lot called core satellite. So the core in the middle is the vanilla staple stuff. Then you have a satellite layer around it, which is say 10 to 15% of what you have. And that's where you do the funkier stuff. You do the real estate, the hedge funds, the private equity, structured products, or access to IPOs in that case. And for me, that's where this type of property fits in. It's that layer around the outside. That's not where the bulk of your money should be going in. But I feel because that's what we tested first and they really liked it, they were like, oh, this is great. So what I said to the team is actually, no, we need to take it back. We're going to do the core assets first. Once we've, helped women to understand that, then we'll bring the satellite layer back. So the property isn't in the app right now. It's built, it's all there, it's ready for when we come back, but we're starting with these vanilla funds. So we're working with...
That you work with the property side?
It's one of the property crowdfunding platforms. So they have their own deals and their own customers, but they have all of the regulatory licenses to do that. So rather than us go and get those licenses ourselves, we're like, right, if we just partner with you and have a relationship, for us, that actually works quite nicely. And that platform exists. There's nothing stopping people going to that platform on their own. But what we found is there was that educational element missing. Because it was new to a lot of these women, they're not going to go to that platform and invest directly because they want to understand it first. So we had a lot of educational content, a lot of webinars where we would help them to understand. So like the info memos they would get with these deals, again, very similar, 30-page documents of jargon. We would break it all down on webinars. We would go through it with them so that by the time they actually got to the investments, they felt more comfortable. Well, that platform doesn't do this. So that's my view on why women just don't go directly. So right now we're working with, as I said, some of the big fund managers. Women can come and open ISAs or general investment accounts.
Okay.
So we're working with Vanguard. We have 3 Vanguard funds. We have 3 BlackRock funds, which have an ESG overlay.
Nice.
Because there were women who said to us, if I can invest, still earn a good return, but do good as well, then that's important to me.
Help the planet.
And then the final fund that we have is from HSBC, and it's a Sharia compliant fund. I'm not Muslim, although a lot of people assume that I am, but I just realized that no one was really doing anything for Muslim women. And again, like when I set out to build Propel, it was to help women, all women. And so I said, look, I'm not Muslim, but we can bring in experts who can help us understand how to give them a compliant offering. And the really interesting thing is we have no Sharia compliant content on our platform, but we have Muslim women investing, and at a pretty like decent rate. And so we started to interview them, and we're like, out of curiosity, like, how did you find us and why are you investing? And they said, look, we heard about Propel and I just came because I thought I could, learn the sort of general content. But then I saw you had a Sharia investment and I felt so seen. So I invested, and then I started to tell everybody else.
Lovely.
And for me,
word of mouth.
Yeah, it was just those messages, like I felt seen. I was like, how is it possible that you're unseen in 2025? So, yeah.
It's just brilliant. It's brilliant. And like, I just love how focused it is. Like it's, you could have just built an app.
Yep.
You've gone, no, I'm making a stand and I'm, going to help women, which, as we all know, just desperately needed it.
Yep.
Men have been up in their ivory towers investing for, donkeys years now. So it's massively needed.
And sometimes it's hard because, when in the early days when I was fundraising, and, a lot of the investors who were men were like, women don't need this. If you open it up to everyone, it will do so much better. And I was like, I don't think so. And I'm like, do you know what? I'm going to stay true to the mission.
I agree.
True to the vision. If they don't see it, that's fine. But I know that, as I said, I feel it. I see the data.
Exactly. You want to know. You want to know in yourself as well.
Yep.
Whether or not your mission stands true to what you want to do. And like, sometimes that's also just way more like, it's that gravity, that energy that you've got that you're bringing to this. And that will essentially galvanize that whole community, in my opinion. I think it's brilliant.
Absolutely. And it's ironic because I'm like, I think that's why it works so well, because we are very clearly for women. They immediately know it's for them, and then they come and they like what we're doing, and then they tell other women. And I feel like if I'd gone out as a generalist platform, we wouldn't have this traction. We wouldn't have got to where we were.
No, because it's hard enough anyway.
Yep.
It is. I completely agree. The app launched in September 2024.
Yes, 25th of September.
Nice. So you're a few months in now.
Yeah.
And what's the plans for this year?
World domination.
Who going to take over the world?
Yeah, pinky in the brain. So we have a lot of plans. My product manager actually says to me, she's like, Ayesha, we're going to pick like 3 things to focus on, and we're going to do those things well. I know you have a lot of ideas, but they have to go in the pipeline. So there are a few things that we want to do this year where, as I said, this week we're releasing the tools. There are more tools that we've built. We'll probably release a few more of those as well. There are some additional accounts that we want to add onto the platform. So we really want to help women throughout their entire journey, whereas right now we're just doing a part of that journey. So there are definitely other bits that we want to add. And I think for us, the focus is on really improving what we have. So as I said, we released it, end of September, beginning of October. We're getting a lot of data, a lot of feedback, and we're changing things around. And I love this. Like, we are so data focused. So every Monday, we have a really deep dive into the data. We literally look at where people are getting stuck. And then we'll say, okay, right, we're going to change the user journey. We're going to move this bit over here and this bit over there. The engineers will do that. We'll push it through. And then we'll start to look at the new data that's come through. And it's like, oh, yes, like now this part of the journey has increased by 20%. Amazing. And then we look for other points along the journey where we can make improvements. And I say that's the key thing. We'll also do a big seed raise. And I actually feel better about fundraising now. I actually have VCs reaching out to me, and I've been very sort of cagey with our data and our metrics because I didn't really have anything to benchmark it with. So I was like, okay, I think our numbers are great, but are they really great? So I was like, right, I'm going to test it with a few VCs and see what they say. They're like, oh my gosh, this is so encouraging. One VC actually said, can we invest now? And I was like, no.
Not yet.
I'm like, no.
Yeah.
I'm like, no. I'm like, I love that you're saying that. And like, finally, rather than me having to chase investors, they're coming to me. Yeah. But I'm like, no, wait for it. There's a lot more to come. And then I can raise at a higher valuation.
Oh, 100%. You're doing the right move. Like, you got the cards in your favor now. You can really play that to your advantage, right?
Like, we have the data. Like, so when they're like, oh, women don't want this, they're not going to do this. Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
and you can see it. Yeah.
Seems so obvious, but they didn't see it. But now they do. So and I think it's amazing. And I just want to say hats off to you because you know, and I really hope any women, but equally men that have women in their lives, show them this episode.
Yep.
And show your friends, and like, let's get this train going, and hopefully we can help with that. Because yeah, I think you're fighting a good fight.
Thank you so much.
It's been a real pleasure having you on. Where can people find you when they come on?
So a couple of places. So I'm on Instagram. I'm not great at it, but I am on Instagram. I'm also on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is probably more my thing. But my team keeps saying, Ayesha, you've got to do more Instagram. And then obviously we have a Propel Instagram as well. But the best place is just to download the app. We've got a lot of content in there. I'm even going to, at some point this year, start doing sort of live sessions in the app myself.
Oh, cool.
Yep. So yeah, I say the best thing for people to do is to download the app.
Yeah, no, great. We'll leave links to this in the show notes for everybody if you want to go and check that out. But thank you so much for coming on. I've loved it.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.